What's up guys, welcome back to Lex Alexis. We've made it to another episode of Transfer Tuesday. This is the 10th episode of the transfer show for the 25-26 season. I can't believe I've done 10 separate videos on these, but that shows you the amount of coverage we've had to do for the transfer show. We've got loads more transfers to talk about that have taken place since my last transfer video last week. I'm going to also talk through some rumours as well. The very exciting thing is, this could be one of the last transfer shows we do, because next Transfer Tuesday will be the 2nd of September, which will be the day after of the transfer window. So if you would like me to do a video before the 1st of September, where we can kind of finalise where things are looking and what could happen on the final day, let me know in the comments, and I might be able to squeeze a transfer show video maybe a little bit earlier than schedule, just so that we can start really going through the speculation and the excitement of the climax of the transfer window. But as always guys, it will be massively appreciated if you can leave a like. If we can go for 20 likes for this video, that will be amazingly appreciated. The subscriber getting the shout out today is Letha Membrane. Honestly, I am, would be very sorry if I'm repeating subscribers' names. There's so many of you, but I don't not come across that name. So Letha Membrane, thank you for subscribing to the channel. If you do subscribe to the channel, anyone who hasn't, your name could be read out in the next video. And if you could share the channel too, it really does help, because that really helps the growth, and we are trying to get to 4,000 subscribers. Without any further ado, let's go through alphabetically what clubs have done in their transfers since my last transfer video. So we inevitably start off our video talking about Birmingham. They've proven to be one of the busier clubs in terms of transfers. They've made over double digits in terms of number of signings, but they've made one signing since my last video, so not as many as normal. They've brought in Lewis Kumas, who is a player who I'm not particularly familiar with, but he has been transferred from Liverpool on loan for this season. So I always get really excited when we have these players go through the traditional Big Six clubs on loan for these clubs. I remember the likes of Oye Jaria being one amazing player that was loaned from Liverpool, who had an amazing couple of seasons with Reading. Lewis Kumas doesn't play in that position. He plays in the left winger position, only 19 years of age, and I am particularly interested to see how he gets on. I don't think attack has been fluid just yet from Birmingham. I think it's still clicking into place, but I do like they've improved the depth of their attack now. Blackburn, they brought in 2 transfers. So Blackburn have been quite proactive. They finally got their first win of the season, which is great, but they would like to potentially score some points at home, and they brought in 2 signings who I've not really heard much about. Moussa Barigi, he's a centre midfielder from Swiss, from Vieron Sport. So I think it's the Challenge League, the Swiss league, and it's a loan transfer. I could see that one particularly being a permanent one if he really hits the ground running for Blackburn there. And Blackburn have been pretty good of getting these players from these unknown European leagues and to really make a really good first impression. But one that does interest me is Ryova Moshita. So he has joined from Legia Warsaw and actually played a big part of Legia Warsaw's Conference League run last season. I remember Legia Warsaw actually played Chelsea, I think, when they eventually got locked out of the Conference League, and Moshita actually played a really big part of that side. I think he's, if I'm correct in saying, he has played with Hashi before, and Hashi has been, to me, one of the more standout players in the last 2 seasons for Blackburn. So I'm really excited to see how they are going to do when they reunite. Charlton, they've had one outgoing since my last video. Daniel Kanu, he has joined Walsall on loan, and he has stayed with Charlton for pretty much most of his career. I think he had a stint at Southend not too long ago, and now he has joined Walsall. I think can make a decent impression there. Ipswich need transfers, and they do have one in going in. Casey McAteer. I actually think that is an interesting signing. He is a winger, and what I like about this transfer is that it weakens a competitor, but it strengthens Ipswich. Now, I don't think a winger is particularly an area they need too much work with. I think they've got so many options already. I personally still feel I don't want too much distraction for this attacking line, because Ipswich at this moment of time have only scored 2 goals so far this season, and that has been a big problem. They are not scoring enough goals. They're dominating games, and they know how to dominate games, and that's very well and good, but you need a cutting edge. You need to take those chances, and right now, I don't know what physical presence they could have. Maybe eventually when Akpom gets introduced to the team, that might improve, but at this moment I'm not seeing enough options that can take players on and can really take the game by the scruff of the neck and can score many goals. So I'm going to hold my reserves for that one. But I actually think as an individual, a really talented player, I think Leicester fans certainly will be a little bit upset that he's no longer there at the club. So I will be excited to see how he gets on, but I will be intrigued to see his involvement with Ipswich. Let's speak about Leicester, because they actually lost a recent first teamer, James Justin. He has joined Leeds United, who certainly will need some defensive reinforcements. They've just conceded 5 goals against Arsenal. I think it's going to be one of those results where they're facing an Arsenal side. It's their first away game of the season. I don't think it's the end of the world yet for Leeds, but certainly defensively, I think that is the area they're looking a little bit shaky with at the moment. And I've got to say, against Everton, I definitely never barely challenged. So I think certainly now they faced a really attacking side, I can see defensively they might not be quite Premier League ready yet. But someone like James Justin has got so much experience at that level, so I think that will be a positive signing for Leeds. But for Leicester's point of view, they certainly need to really speed things up and get some transfers in, because I might dedicate a video to this about why the 3 year one parachute payment teams are struggling, and I just think it's certainly down to the speed and the speculation and the exhaustion of so much change in their squads just based on how they performed last season. So yeah, I feel like whilst they've picked up 6 points, I think they'd take that at the moment, because there's been so much disruption at their squad, and right now I think all year one parachute payment teams are just going to want the transfer window to end eventually, just so that they can have a settled squad. But I think Leicester are not having so much depth at the moment. I would like to see them go for a little bit more and just to get some more names through the door. For Middlesbrough, they have technically got 2 ingoings, but only one can actually make an impact. So Severe Naipan, I spoke about him in my rumours section last week. He has completed the loan transfer from Manchester City as a centre midfielder. I think he did actually feature for Middlesbrough's last game against Norwich and did okay. And a very interesting deal about Adilson Malanda. So it is a transfer from FC Charlotte. I believe that's the second FC Charlotte player that is actually going to join a championship club. But the conditions on this one is that Middlesbrough have currently loaned Malanda back to FC Charlotte, and they've agreed that he can stay there until FC Charlotte complete their season in MLS, which will finish at the turn of the year. So essentially, it's going to be treated like a January transfer signing, Malanda. And based on what he's done, he recently picked up man of the match for FC Charlotte as well. So potentially a really promising player that Middlesbrough are going to get. He's a centre-back, and I actually think defensively they've been quite strong so far. But with the prospect of Malanda also going in, I think their squad depth is looking particularly strong at the moment, so I'm liking what Middlesbrough are doing. Portsmouth, they completed the signing of Josh Knight from Hannover 96. I think in terms of championship experience, I think he's had 2 separate clubs with experience in the championship. I like to think he joined Wycombe, definitely for the season where they got promoted up to the championship, and I believe he also had a season with Peterborough at that level as well. So Josh Knight has had championship experience per se. He left Peterborough a little bit ago to join Hannover 96, and he's now 27 years of age, a defender, and I do think Portsmouth defensively have looked okay so far. But again, I'm always going to be a big fan of players with so much experience that's going to improve depth. So brilliant signing, I think, for Portsmouth. Norwich, maybe not so much of a surprise, since the positive turnaround of Morecambe. I mean, that was something that happened so quickly and happened after everything that's gone on. I've got to say, I am so relieved that Morecambe have been saved. So Punjab Warriors do officially own Morecambe FC now. Absolutely unbelievable. They've certainly tested some of the fans' views with some of the decisions they made, especially with their manager Derek Adams, who's no longer managing the club. But they have picked up their first win, Morecambe, but that is a little bit tainted now because they lost 4-0 to Aldershot. I mean, I'm not going to be too harsh on them. I think Aldershot in the previous game actually won their first game by beating Solihull Moors. I think it was by 5-1. So I think Aldershot are now just going through a really good streak, and I think it was just a poor time for Morecambe to play them. But in terms of a transfer, which is why I'm talking about Morecambe, they had their goalkeeper, who they've loaned out from Norwich, Archie Mayer. He's now rejoined Morecambe, I think on a permanent basis, actually. So a good, solid transfer, and I was really pleased to see Morecambe slowly but surely starting to reunite some of the players that they got from the previous season, and they're going to have a National League season with them. So I'm pleased with how Morecambe are. From Norwich's point of view, I just don't think it's going to raise too many concerns. I think they've already got quite a few goalkeepers. Although Archie Mayer is not the only goalkeeper that's left Norwich, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Oxford, they managed to get in one ingoing and one outgoing. So the ingoing is Ben Davies. Now, I actually quite like this transfer. I certainly think he would have been better a couple of years ago. He's 30 now, which is crazy. Like, for me, the years have just accelerated by. I remember him as like a youngish defender, not a 30-year-old defender now, but he obviously was a Preston player. Then he went to Liverpool, and then that didn't quite work out. He then went to Rangers for a little bit, and now he has gone back to the Championship on a loan transfer from Rangers. So I think Oxford have always been particularly strong defensively. I think it's just been their attacking line that has let them down a little bit so far this season, but I'm not going to complain for someone like Ben Davies. He certainly did really well in the Championship with Preston. He was certainly one where when he did leave Preston, it was a bit of a void that Preston had to try and fill. So I think Oxford could reap the benefits of having someone like his experience in that squad. In terms of an outgoing, it's not a massive one. Peter Kioso, he's actually rejoined Peterborough. Now, he wasn't at Peterborough last season. I'd like to think he was at Rotherham last season, but the season before that, I think he was a Peterborough player. So he's been jumping around a little bit with a couple of clubs, but it does feel like to me that he's finalised on rejoining Peterborough. So I think good for them, because Peterborough really need all the help they can get. They're struggling at the moment in League One. So I think someone like Kioso could do a really good job for them there. Preston, they've also had one ingoing and one outgoing. So the ingoing is Lewis Dobbin. So another loan player from a Premier League club, this time Aston Villa. I have heard some really promising things about Dobbin. I think with how well Preston have been so far, they certainly can't complain with that. It's another winger, so another option where they could feed the likes of Osmai and Michael Smithson's service, and I think they're working quite well together at this moment of time. So I am a big fan of that signing. The outgoing is Patrick Bauer. So Patrick Bauer had a couple of years with Preston. I think his energy wasn't quite what it used to. He was starting to pick up more frequent injuries, and he just wasn't the same player. But he's joined AFC Wimbledon, and I think that's a positive signing for Wimbledon, actually. They've started League One very well, and actually recently beat Barnsley, who at the time I think were unbeaten. So Wimbledon starting very, very well in terms of, and really overachieving expectations. I put them down in 24th, which I'm quite ashamed to say at the moment. So I think someone like Patrick Bauer offers some great experience for that back line, and they're already looking pretty defensively solid. So I think, again, another really good option for Wimbledon. Queen's Park Rangers have been the most busy club in terms of this week, and especially over the last day, actually. So they obviously had a bit of a humiliating weekend. They conceded 7 goals against Coventry, and their response to that was to get in 2 defenders and a player who they got from last season. So the 2 defenders he got were Isaac Hayden. He actually is also rejoining a club which he previously played for, but he also wasn't a Queen's Park Rangers player last season. It was 2024, I think he had a spell with. And Reece Norrington-Davies is the other defender that Queen's Park Rangers have got in. Now, I wasn't particularly impressed with Reece Norrington-Davies when he made his defensive performance against Bristol City for Sheffield United. But I think at this moment, Queen's Park Rangers are certainly lacking some quality at the back, and I think they really need all the help they can get. Isaac Hayden, whilst he's not the youngest of players anymore, I think he also offers some really important experience. Defensive midfielder, I kind of really put Hayden towards, but I think he could someone who could sit back. And Reece Norrington-Davies, I see him more as a centre back or a wing back, which we have actually seen him do quite well when he was at Luton. So I think certainly now Queen's Park Rangers' strength in defence has gone up a little bit, but it's going to convince me to see if Queen's Park Rangers are going to defend properly, because what they showed against Coventry was pretty shambolic. I can't really say anything else than that, unfortunately. But the player that's returning to Queen's Park Rangers is Koki Sato. I think that's a really positive bit of news for Queen's Park Rangers. So to remind you of his profile, he has actually left from the Belgian Pro League. I think it's SK Normal. I think that's the club he used to play in. 24 years of age, Japanese player, and an undisclosed fee for what I'm aware of in terms of the details of transfer. I think that's a really good bit of news just to get someone in who I think did have a good impact for Queen's Park Rangers last season. Outgoings point of view, they've only let go Zan Sema. He is a centre forward and he has joined Fortuna Dusseldorf, I believe, in the second division for the Bundesliga. So I don't think that's a massive loss for them. And personally, going forward, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Queen's Park Rangers going just as a squad at the moment. So it's going to take a lot, but they certainly are trying to actively respond to try and get some defensive experience there. So I'm pleased on that front that they have actually acted upon their recent defensive woes. Sheffield United have actually made some defensive signings too, and I'm pleased that they have, because they're bottom of the table right now and they really need all the help they can get. So, one of the players was actually linked in my last week's rumour video, and it was Neil Zetterstrom. So, he has joined Sheffield United from FC Malmö. 20 years of age, so he's got a good amount of years left within him. I think that can be a positive transfer, but he'll be one which I don't think we should throw in straight away. I think he's going to be one that will have to learn to mature in this league. But one who I think could step in is Ben Godfrey. He has got so much experience in the Championship and the Premier League, actually, with his recent stints with Norwich and Everton. So I do think he will be able to make a good impact, good amount of experience. He's on loan, actually, from Atalanta. So I think Sheffield United really got to try and implement him in terms of a solid player, but they needed more depth in their centre-back area. They had Amadezovic leaving and then injuries in that area of the pitch. So now they've done that, I think Sheffield United are in slightly better shape, but the pressure's still mounting on Ruben Selles to try and get a result. Sheffield Wednesday, I'm going to actually speak about them not because of their ownership problems, because they actually have a transfer. Now, they didn't really have much of a choice on this because their goalkeeper, Piers Charles, sustained an injury, I believe, against Stoke, and right now they were struggling to field a goalkeeper. So they got an emergency goalkeeper, Ethan Horvath, from Cardiff. He didn't have the best game in his debut against Wrexham, but it was still something that actually allowed Sheffield Wednesday to get a point on the board. I'm a little bit more concerned with Wrexham in terms of how they reacted in that game, and I am a little bit worried about the manner of it and whether Phil Parkinson is actually going to be the right sort of manager tactically to take Wrexham to that next stage. But that's a conversation and a topic for another video. I think, again, good depth in that goalkeeping area now. A little bit forced in the way that it needed to be done, but I'm pleased that they were able to get this deal done. For Southampton, they've actually had lots of movement in terms of their recent news. So, 2 ingoings and 1 outgoing, 1 very notable outgoing. Mats Roerslev has joined Southampton from Brentford. I actually think that's a really good signing. He's only 26 years old, and he's someone who I think, especially in their championship seasons, I thought did really well for Brentford, and has slowly been kind of fading out of the squad, but I actually think still he can do a really good job in the Championship, and he will filter that Kyle Walker-Peters void. So I'm really pleased that they've actually found someone really capable for to do that role. Goalkeeper point of view, they got another one, George Long. So that's the Norwich goalkeeper I was on about. He's been signed from Norwich. So you've got Bazunu, and then you've also now got George Long. So they've got a decent amount of experience in terms of a first and a second choice goalkeeper now, which is great. But the one that probably everyone's waiting me for is to talk about the outgoing, Tyler Dibling. We thought that he may go, but he has officially gone literally hours before recording this video. He has joined Everton, and that is quite amazing because last rumour video we were kind of talking about that Everton have been quite frustrated about the fee and they were going to look at other targets, but they stuck with it. They managed to get him in, reportedly on a 40 million plus fee. I think that's a good amount of money raised for Southampton. I think potentially they may have wanted a little bit more with add-ons, but I think it was inevitable that Dibling was going to attract a lot of interest. In their poor season last season, he was the one shining light. I mean, he scored against Ipswich, and I remember actually talking to some Ipswich fans about he is the one threat in that Southampton squad to worry about. Right now, I think he's now earned the move that he has been sort of working towards with how good he was with Southampton, where it was, you know, not many positives to take from their last season. Only 19. He's got to be a really good signing for Everton in the future. I don't think he will start every game, but I think he will be an amazing option off the bench. So I think Dibling now earning a really good move, I think it's going to be beneficial for him. And I'm almost pleased for Southampton's case that they now don't need to worry about Dibling. They've now got the money for it, and they've got a week now to actually use that to see if they can improve their squad further. So we'll see what movement Southampton do in the next week. Swansea, they managed to get in one signing, Marko Stamenic from Nottingham Forest, 23 years old and a centre midfielder on an undisclosed fee. I say a good amount of depth in their centre midfield now. Outgoing point of view for Swansea though is Cameron Congreve. He has joined Dundee on loan. I don't think that's going to do too much to them. Swansea are not striking to me that they're going to struggle to get goals already based on what I've seen. So I think that's a decent bit of business on that part. Stoke, I mean, what a name for a player. They managed to get him True Grant. So he is a goalkeeper from the Manchester City youth squad and has joined Stoke not on loan but actually on a permanent undisclosed fee. So that is some ambition. He's the second Manchester City youth signing that Stoke have got since getting Mubamba in, who I think has had a more positive experience than a bad experience. I think his sort of expectation has been tarnished a bit with the fact that he got the second yellow card and got sent off for diving. I mean, I think that's just a typical sort of inexperienced young striker behaviour to try and win the penalty needlessly, and getting himself sent off, you know, is a bit of a blow. But I think with the ambition and the choices that Stoke are making, I'm actually really liking the transfers they're making. They have got one outgoing though. Michael Rhodes has joined Salford on a free transfer. A really experienced player, and I think that will be a really good signing for Salford's point of view. And then the final club that's made ingoings is Wrexham. So there was a rumour going around about Callum Doyle. They managed to get him in from Leicester. Lots of experience. I can already speak about his amazing work with Leicester and obviously Coventry as well more recently. So Callum Doyle has had so much experience, and this is a permanent transfer as well. So fair play to Wrexham for managing to tie him down to a permanent deal. And I think it is a much needed transfer because defensively, Wrexham are looking a little bit fragile. They have conceded 7 goals in their opening 3 games. That's over 2 goals a game. Defensively, they need work. And I think Callum Doyle might not be able to fix the whole defence. I still think it's either Phil Parkinson needs to try and focus more defensively, or they need another 1 or 2 experienced players. And I think with the amount of signings they've made, it's going to be very difficult for Wrexham to justify getting more players in. So they might have to settle with that. But at least they've got someone like Doyle in who's going to be very, very experienced at this level. Okay, so these are all the transfers. There's a lot of them. But we are going to now go through some rumours, and I'm going to try and go through as many different teams as I can. The first rumour is going to be on Coventry. Now, actually, the first 2 rumours are about Coventry, about an ingoing and an outgoing. The ingoing rumour, I think, is quite interesting. Frank Lampard is trying to get Ben Chilwell. He will be a really good Championship signing. You know, let's not beat around the bush here. He's certainly not getting minutes at Chelsea. That position's pretty much covered now with the likes of Cucurella. He spent the second half of last season with Crystal Palace. I thought he did an okay job, actually, when he was used for Palace. But by the looks of things, he is now returning as a Chelsea player. He won't get minutes. If they can somehow strike a deal, maybe a loan transfer to get Ben Chilwell in, that will be an amazing quality left back for Championship level who will have so much experience, and that could really, really help with this Coventry side. But on the flip side, they are looking like that they are really starting to lose faith on keeping Milan Van Eyck, because Wolfsburg are looking like that they're going to get him in for £10.3 million, including add-ons. That's a good bit of business for Coventry to get an 8-figure sum for a defender like Van Eyck. But we saw recently in that 5-3 victory from Coventry against Derby, he played a major part in that game. So I think it is going to, not like writings against the wall, but I think it's going to be ever more unlikely that Coventry are going to keep him on, unfortunately. So I think when someone like Wolfsburg is going to offer an 8-figure sum for someone like him, I think they will take that on, and I almost hope in that case that they do get the deal done as soon as they're possible, because then they can actually use that money to potentially improve more areas of the squad and potentially trying to fill the void as well. So I think it's looking more likely that Van Eyck is on his way out of Coventry. Ipswich, they are keen on getting more transfers in, and the most recent development is on Jordan James, a name that you may be familiar with because he was a Birmingham player, I believe, 2 seasons ago. He joined Rennes last season in League A, and he did an okay job there, and it's reported that Ipswich are wanting another centre midfielder. And that is apparent. Midfield is really where they're looking quite weak in options at the moment there. And yeah, it's going to be interesting competition because Parma want him and Wrexham want him. So it does feel like at the moment Ipswich still have lots to spend because of the recent sales they've had with Delap and Hutchinson. I feel like they are not quite utilising those fees properly to entice those players to come in. So I think we've already mentioned with, the likes of Sheffield United, Southampton and Ipswich, they are going to make so much movement in this last week. And Coventry could very well do as well if Van Eyck does decide to go too. So I think it just more or less sort of adds to speculation, but the excitement of what clubs could be doing in terms of the final week of a transfer window. Now let's talk about Derby County. They are looking like that they're going to get Sturm Graz right back Max Johnston. So this is going to include a fee of 3.3 million, I think. So I think it's going to be 2.2 million initial fee with a 1.3 million being an add-on. So actually that's 3.5 million. I should be able to add up there. So that is interesting as well. He was linked with lots of League One clubs actually, but I think now he is looking like that he's well in demand. And I think for someone like Derby, who certainly defensively haven't been too great, but I think that has been down to injuries in that area. I think getting someone like Max Johnston in, if they can pull this off, I think that would be a positive signing for Derby. Another rumour is on Blackburn. So we've already spoken about these players that they're getting from European leagues. This is another one. So they're looking like that they're trying to get a deal of Sambu Sumano. I think that's a very interesting link there. But he's from Lorient, so that's in the French league. If they can get him in, that is going to add more depth in their attacking options. And I think we did see the potential of what Blackburn could do for putting 3 past Hull. And it will be nice to have more attacking options and cutting edge and not having to just rely on Cantwell or Ahashi for goals. And I think Sumano, if Blackburn can pull this off, I think that will be a really positive move for them. Sheffield United are going to be a big talking point in this rumours because they've been linked with 3 players. Now, one is looking like that they will confirm very soon, and that's Japhet Tanganga. So the ironic part is that Sheffield United recently played Millwall, and Millwall won that by 1-0. So I feel like Tanganga is going to be caught in a little bit of crossroads with that, but I think if he's really in developments of now being signed to Sheffield United, I don't think he can look back now. But the other 2 players that have been linked are former Southampton players. Nathan Redmond has been linked. I think he will be a positive signing if he can pull this off. Sheffield United, they certainly, for me, need a little bit more depth in their attacking areas. So I think Nathan Redmond will be positive for that point of view. And they've also been linked with a striker. Now, we cannot forget they lost the likes of Kiefer Moore. He may not have scored as many goals as he did last season, but we saw how important he is in terms of the link-up play already for Wrexham. And I do find that Sheffield United are missing that presence. But Danny Ings has been a player that actually has been scoring plenty goals in the past couple of seasons. I think it's only been maybe the 1 or last 2 seasons where the goals have dried up ever so slightly, and maybe for confidence going down to the Championship might be what they need. And for someone like Sheffield United, I think that will be a really, stable club to go to. But I feel at this moment of time, the pressure is huge for Sheffield United at the moment to get these transfers right. So I think with that added pressure, I think it's going to make things even more a little bit difficult for players to come in. But I think if they see the project and they see enough good things about it, that should entice them to go. But I think whilst the ambition is now looking like there, I do question the lateness of getting those players in, because it does feel to me that some teams have been really good about getting players early and starting well. I look at Preston being exactly that type of club. And then we're seeing clubs suddenly making transfers so late within the window, and because of that, there's disjointment and performances are not clicking. I look at Ipswich, I look at Southampton, and I look especially Sheffield United being very guilty of that. So I think if there's a lesson to be learned, your squad's could be a lot more settled and actually with a lot more quality if you give them the time, a full pre-season to settle in. Final rumour I'm going to talk about today is on Amir Hadizametovic. If I mispronounce that name, I'm so sorry. But it's a midfielder from Besiktas, and Hull have been linked with him. I think he'll be a good option if they can get him through. Hull at this moment, I've actually made quite a few signings, but there is a little bit of vulnerability, and potentially midfield is where they're losing out a little bit. They're not quite being able to win that physical battle. I don't think getting someone like Hadizametovic might actually be a positive transfer for that as well. So I'd heavily support that one if they can get this done as well. Okay, so that wraps up the transfer show today. So obviously there may only be one more transfer show. Again, if you do want me to do a transfer show before the deadline day to speculate even further, let me know in the comments. If not, I will do another transfer show, number 11, on the 2nd of September, and then we will react to basically all the transfers that have taken place in that time. If you guys like what you see, please smash the like button, it really does help. Please hit the subscribe button too, and please share the channel too. All 3 of these things are free to do, and they really help. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary for this video, and as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.